right, gang. So here I am. I've been working on this model because one of the biggest questions I get asked all the time is like, what do you do in your coaching program? Like, what does that look like? And I think we all can agree that there's three things that we all need to work on. So if we're someone who is trying to get into better shape, not even get in better shape. Why do we want to get in better shape, right? Who wants to look better, who wants to feel better, and someone who wants to perform better, right? And generally speaking, we can always say, like, if somebody is very, very healthy, they have all three of those things. They look great, they feel great, and they perform, their body performs well, right? Generally speaking, that's one of the ways that we can sort of define a healthy person. And if we're missing one of those things, like let's say we're 50 pounds overweight, well, that could be a sign that something is going on health related, right? Let's say that our performance is very, very low. Let's just say that if I were to fall onto the ground, I wouldn't be able to get back up, right? Remember the old I think it was Life Alert commercial, I've fallen and I can't get up. Like, that's a serious problem, right? So that's what puts us in nursing homes. Let's say if you don't feel very good, like let's say you're, I don't know, whatever, you don't feel energetic, you don't feel sharp and clear in your mind, you don't have confidence. Like if you don't feel good, I would argue that that's affecting your health, right? That's part of your health. So all of those things, all of those three things, we need all three of those things. I'm having a hard time talking today. We need all three of those things in order to really manifest our healthiest version of ourselves, right? So what do we do in Athletic After 40? And like in my mind, the Athletic After 40 program is the way to health. Like it's building not just an athletic body, that's kind of like the front facing words is Athletic After 40, and I put that word in there, but really it's the ultimate manifestation of that is health, right? Most really good looking athletes are very healthy, right? We would say they're probably in a place of almost some sort of super health, right? And if we drill down into some of the details, like their work capacity is very good. I mean, their energy levels are very, very good. They're generally, if they go to the doctor, right, their markers all look really good. In fact, they're better than normal, right? I mean, all of those things look really, really good. They look great, right? Generally speaking, they're very, very lean. They look amazing. They look athletic. Generally, they have a lot of confidence. They feel good about the way that they feel, the way that they feel good about their body. There could be some other things there. I'm not saying that this is, truly 100% of the case all the time, because mental health has a lot to do with this. But I'll tell you this, if you look great, feel great, and perform well, you're much more likely to be able to fix some of the things going on mentally. Right? If you're overweight, if your performance is very, very low because you're out of energy and you're not very strong and you're getting injured all the time, that can mess with your mental state, right? It can limit you as to how good you can actually feel, right? So anyways, I'm kind of going on a tangent here because that's not ultimately what I wanted to do. What I really want to do is I want to explain to you what the AA40 coaching program and why I built it and the things that we work on inside of here to be able to get you to this lifestyle, right? This lifestyle of looking, feeling, and performing really, really well. So anyways, three things that go into this, right? Number one is fitness. Again, we can all agree on this, I think, for the most part. Number one is fitness, right? We need to be able to do the things that we want to do physically in our life. Number two is nutrition, right? We need to be able to we need to make sure that we're putting the right foods in our face to look good, right? And for health. And then we need to rest, right? Resting, one of the big things is we need to sleep at night, right? So these are the things that I kind of want to drill down on and go into, because we all kind of know those three categories, right? They're sort of broad, they're very big, but we need to get a little bit more, we need to drill down onto these things to really understand, what do we need to work on in these specific areas, right? So just let me talk about the blue sections here, the blue writing, right? When we've got fitness and when we've got nutrition, when those two come together, I can get somebody very fit and I can get somebody very lean, right? But if we're not resting, let's say somebody's very fit and very lean and they're not resting well, let's say they're only sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, they may suffer in other areas, right? So even though you look fit and lean, doesn't necessarily mean that you're healthy, right? There could be something going on. There could be some underlying condition that's affecting your true potential, right? If I'm only sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, which I hear from a lot of guys, my fitness may be limited, right? I'm not going to be able to achieve some of the levels that maybe I really ultimately want to achieve. I may still carry some extra body fat, right? I may look pretty lean in my clothes, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm where I want to be, right? It can really, by not bringing the rest component into it, I can look fit. I can develop my fitness. I can get pretty lean, but I'm not going to get to my true potential. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. If I do just fitness and rest, right? So if I just do fitness and rest, I can get myself into pretty good shape, right? But there's a chance that I might be flabby. Like if I'm disregarding my nutrition, and I think this is a place where a lot of guys fall into. We tend to think that, we're just going to exercise ourselves into a good looking body. And that's not necessarily the case, but we can improve fitness, right? I can improve your 5K time. I can make you stronger. I can do all of these things, even if you're going home and drinking a case of beer and eating a pizza, right? I always say to people, like, go to your local 5K race, go to your local marathon or triathlon and watch the people that are crossing the finish line who perform pretty well. And you'll notice a lot of them have a lot of extra body fat. And upon interviewing these people, which I've done, upon interviewing these people, they'll a lot of times they'll admit, like, look, my diet isn't very good. I train my butt off, but if I could fix my diet, I could probably get rid of this extra 30 pounds and I could probably be even fitter. Right. So hopefully that makes sense. Right. And then if we do the nutrition and the rest, we can be very unfit. Right. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're strong or that we have a good sized gas tank. It doesn't mean that we have a lot of energy. There's a good chance that you might be okay with energy if you're resting well, but we could be very, very unfit. And yet we could be very, very lean. Like I have a good friend who eats really well, but he's just exercise is not his thing. So he's like thin as a rail. And he feels pretty good, but his fitness is very low. Like if we were to go out and do a 5K, he'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. Right. So those are the manifestations of those things when we bring, only two of them together. And it's why it's so important to bring all three together, because that's where we get to this lifestyle of, and I put in the green, AA40, right? The lifestyle of athletic after 40. And really, athletic after 40 is what we're chasing is health, right? So we can replace AA40, and I don't know if should I do it here? Let's see here. If I replace AA40, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. Let me see something here. Hold on. Bear with me. Okay, there we go. So, I could replace this AA40 and I could literally just say, healthy, right? That's what we want. We want to be fit. We want to be lean. We want to feel good. We want to have energy. Like these are all of the things that we need in order to really manifest the healthiest body that we can possibly be, to be the best version of yourself, right? Okay. So now what does it take to achieve these three things, right? And I think if I were to ask anybody, like if I were to ask you, okay, so what of those three areas, fitness, nutrition, and rest, where do you struggle with the most? Okay. And you probably look at this and you probably go right away, something probably jumps out at you, right? You probably go, well, nutrition really sucks for me, right? So let's just use that as an example. So if nutrition really sucks for you, we can drill that down even a little bit more, because we really don't know what that means. Everybody has a little definition of what good nutrition looks like. I have a very clear, defined definition. And there's, three things that we need to focus on when it comes to nutrition in order to really get ourselves to that green spot, to the healthy spot. Okay. So the three things you can see, I've got them, sort of surrounding. Let me just get a different color here. I'll use red. So you can see, these three things right here. Okay. All right. And the three things are fast for health. Okay. So as a society, we tend to eat for very long durations of time during the day, meaning like when we get up in the morning, we start eating at we have our breakfast, we break the fast at, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and we eat until 8 o'clock at night. Right? It doesn't give our body a whole lot of time to not have anything in our digestive system. Okay. And we know now, based on scientific research, we know that when your stomach is empty, the physiology of your body changes, and it changes in a beneficial way where it allows your cells to clean themselves up, to take out the trash, right? So that when you start putting food in your stomach again, we change physiologically, and then all of a sudden we start to rebuild. So if the cells are breaking down the broken stuff, we need the construction people to come in the next day and to be able to rebuild that stuff, right? And some of that happens while we're sleeping as well, and usually they sort of go hand in hand. But look, if I'm stuffing my face at 8 o'clock at night, my stomach won't even get fully empty. My digestive system won't even fully empty during that time that I'm sleeping, right? I mean, and it can cause some problems with your health over time when it's done chronically. And think back, like what was the teachings 30 years ago was you got to eat 5-6 meals a day, ramps up your metabolism, right? All of these things. And now we're looking at fasting. Science is looking at fasting and going, maybe that's really not the case, because we know what happens when there's no food in the stomach compared to when there is food in the stomach. And it's totally different. And there's benefits to both. And we want for you to be the healthiest version of yourself. We need to be in both of those states, right? Just like we need to sleep at night and we need to be awake at, both are completely different physiological states, and there are benefits to both, okay? Number two, if we just call this number one here, we'll call this number two here, but support your daily work. Support your daily work just means that you need to be eating the quantity of food that supports the activity level that you have, right? So, Michael Phelps, of course, is going to need, back in his training days, I'm not sure if he's still training, but maybe not training like he used to, but he's going to require more food, more energy than someone who's not that active, right? So we need to figure out what is the amount of food to support your activity, but no more or no less, right? Because if we eat too little, it's going to affect our energy levels, right? We're not going to be able to do that. We're not going to want to do the things that we want to do. And I would say that if we cut calories by too much, which is one of the things that happens in just about every freaking weight loss diet that's out there, if we cut the calories too much, you can actually hurt yourself from a health standpoint more than you can help yourself. So even though you're losing weight, you could be hurting yourself. You could be negatively affecting your health. And nobody wants to do that, right? So we need to make sure that you're eating enough food to be able to support your activities, okay? And then number three, I don't have room to write number three on there, but number three is eat quality food. And to me, this is the most important thing, right? We need to eat quality food, because even if you're eating the right amount, and even if you're doing fasting, if you're living on milkshakes, beer, and pizza every day, that's going to be a problem, right? And you're probably shaking your head going, yeah, of course, right? So, I mean, these are the three things that we need to really bring into our lives in order to have the best nutrition. And each of these things has some specific things that we want to look for. And there's some individuality in some of these things as well that we want to bring into your life, right? So in order to get your nutrition right, those are the three big things that we need to focus on, and that we need to make sure that are done right for you to get to the green, to the health, to the athletic after 40 lifestyle, okay? So what I would invite you to do, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a JPEG. Actually, I think it's a PNG, but anyways, you'll have an image file that you can pull this up and you can print it out. And what I would do if I was you is I would print this out, and then I would get a couple of different color highlighters, right? And I'm going to do that here. And you can see on the right, I've got red is poor, yellow needs work, and green is good. And you can do a bit of a self-assessment here, right? So I'm just going to do an example. So for nutrition, I can say, okay, well, the quality of my food is not so good. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill this in, highlight this as a red zone. Okay. Something that I need to work on, right? Let's say support daily work. So let's say I don't need too much, I support myself pretty well as far as daily work goes. I tend to not overeat, but my quality is very, very bad. So I'm going to put that as green. There's a lot of people out there that are like, you know what, I barely eat anything, yet I'm still overweight, and some of that can be because of the other red zones, right? So if your quality of food is off, that can affect the amount of body fat that you're carrying around, right? And let's say fasting, let's say, every once in a while I skip breakfast. So, I'm not too bad there. I do tend to fast occasionally. Maybe you've practiced some intermittent fasting before, maybe you're on a protocol, but maybe you could refine that a little bit better, make that a little bit better. So we'll just call that yellow. So just looking at this, now all of a sudden you've got this beautiful model of, okay, now I need to start focusing on the quality of my food. Like that's my number one thing, right? So it's a great way to really hone in on the things that you need to focus on to get yourself into a better place. Okay. And when we get into the coaching of Athletic After 40, these are the things that we're looking at. These are the things we bring them all together to develop all of these things, again, so you can get into your healthiest possible space. Okay. And then, let's do the same thing with fitness. So with fitness, we've got 3 different things on here. Learn the skills, and fitness has skills, right? And there's some very specific skills that we work on in the Athletic After 40 program that carry themselves over very well to everyday life. Because, I call a lot of the bodybuilding routines that are out there, I call it fluffy fitness, like where it's a very minimalistic approach. It's very time consuming. It doesn't carry over very well to everyday life. What most folks need to be healthy is they need to practice functional movements that teach the body how to function as one giant muscle instead of a bunch of little individual pieces. And it takes more skill. They're harder to learn, and I'll just give an example, like a squat. To be able to squat down and stand back up, every human being needs to be able to do that and do that very, very well. And I don't even care, like if your knee is bugging you, you need to figure out what's wrong with your knee and you need to learn how to squat again. Because if you're just like, well, my doctor told me never to squat again, that's a problem. That's going to affect you for the rest of your life, right? You need to be able to, there's some fundamental things that we all need to be able to do. One of them is lean yourself forward and pick something up from the floor, even if it's heavy, right? Like these are the skills that we need to learn. And actually what I would say is relearn, because as kids, we do this very, very well. But then all of a sudden we have a few years where we're sedentary, where we're sitting a lot for work, the skills tend to go away. And we kind of mold our body into these sitting creatures instead of these functional creatures. So we have to relearn these skills, right? And there's a few of them that I bring into the program that I think that you need to learn very, very well. And when you learn skills, it's kind of like riding a bike, right? When you learn the skills, you have them for the rest of your life. So the more we practice them, the more we do them, the more we learn them, the more we become very, very proficient. The more you can have those at your disposal literally for the rest of your life. Super, super valuable, right? Build your strength. We all need to be able to have the strength to be able to do things in our life that we need to do. And I always use the example, like a very simple one is like working in the yard, right? There's been plenty of times, plenty of springs where I've mulched the beds in my yard. Hopefully I never have to do that again. If you can, pay somebody else to do that. But mulching is like that. You need some strength, right? If you have no strength and use a tiny little shovel, it takes you a million shovelfuls to fill that wheelbarrow. It's going to take you forever, right? Wouldn't you rather just grab the giant shovel, take big piles of mulch and load them into the wheelbarrow and then haul that wheelbarrow, have the strength to be able to haul that wheelbarrow, up the hill to the bed at the top of the yard, whatever, So we need to have some strength, right? And I have some very specific numbers that I look for with specific activities. So we know exactly what we need to do to build the strength for you to be able to live your best life, right? And there's really no ceiling on that. You can go as far as you want to go, but the first thing we need to do is just get you to the minimum standards, okay? So first of all, learn the skills. That's really number one. Build your strength, and I'm talking about full body strength. I don't care about your bicep curl strength. I don't care about your how many crunches you can do. Like those things, they don't apply very well. Okay, so build your strength, very, very important. And if you're trying to get lean, if you're trying to get healthy, a healthy person is strong. They're unafraid to pick up that heavy thing in the garage. They're unafraid to pick up their kids or their grandkids, right? They're unafraid. It's not like, when I look at something on the floor, I don't go, oh God, I hope I don't throw out my back. I'm strong enough and confident enough to know that I can do that. Okay. And then lastly, install a gas tank. We need to have a gas tank. And if we go back to the example that I gave with the mulching, it's one thing to be really, really strong, but I need to have a gas tank to be able to get the job done in a reasonable amount of time. I don't want to spend 3 weeks, moving the mulch from my driveway to my beds because I just die off after a half an hour. We need to have a gas tank, right? So there's some great ways that we can build a gas tank. We can build your strength, learn the skills, bring it all together and develop fitness, right? The fitness that lends itself very well to everyday life and which is going to make you extremely, extremely healthy, okay? So those are the 3 things. So now we can do the same thing, right? We can use our good, needs work, and poor. For a lot of guys, For a lot of guys, we tend to focus, change my color here, we tend to focus a lot on this, stalling gas tank, right? And it's running, it's like endurance stuff, right? Triathlons, running, um, biking, it's like this long duration activity stuff that that we tend to bring in our lives, especially when we're feeling fat, right? It's like, oh man, I gotta go out and burn some calories, so I gotta go do some cardio, right? And you spend 6 weeks, on a running routine, and next thing you know, you feel better running. Like you don't mind going out and running anymore. You don't gas out as much as you used to, but what the heck? The 20 pounds hasn't budged, So let's say we're good there. Let's say that here's, what a lot of endurance athletes tend to do is they don't do any strength training. So their strength is very, very weak. And I've worked with hundreds of these people, and it's unfortunate because I think a lot of these guys who love doing the gas tank work, they get injured. They blow themselves up. And it's like, oh, it's overuse injuries. No, it's because you're not strong. Yeah, it is. It's because you're not strong. You need to develop the strength in your system. You need to load that system above and beyond what you're getting in your whatever that gas tank activity is. And then ultimately, we need to bring the two together. We need to combine them. We no longer need to disassociate them. We can develop them individually, but we need to bring them together because real life, we need both. Go back to the mulch example. Real life doesn't, mulching does not, the strongest man in the world is the guy that can deadlift 5,000 pounds off the floor is going to gas out moving the mulch, right? And the guy who's got an incredible marathon time is going to have to use the little shovel, right? Because he has no strength, right? So real life rewards the combination of both. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Learn the skills. For a lot of us, we don't have a lot of the skills. Like if you're a runner, you're probably a great runner, but as soon as we put you on a barbell and we try to get you to do a deadlift, you struggle, right? We put you on a pull-up bar and you struggle, right? Because your strength isn't very good and you don't know the skills, right? The more we can develop the skills, the more efficient we can make you, the better you become, and the more opportunity you have to really develop yourself physically, right? So you have to learn the skills, just like, again, the power lifter, the person that is really good at deadlifting, if we tell them to go out and run a 5K, their running is probably going to be pretty awful, right? Because they never practice it, okay? So we have to learn the skills. We need to learn the skills that lend themselves very, very well to everyday life. So I'm going to say, some of us have some skills in some areas, like, oh, I was an ex-high school athlete or whatever, and I did some weightlifting back then. So I kind of remember how to do some of this stuff, but I could always be a little bit better, right? So I think that's a pretty fair assessment of most of the folks that are out there. And then rest. So rest. The three big things we're looking for in rest is, number one, sleep, right? That's the foundation of the whole thing, is we need to make sure that we're getting enough sleep at night. So sleeping like a baby. There's some things that we look for in sleep. It's not just the amount, but it's also the quality, and the continuity. Are you waking up in the middle of the night and then falling back asleep? So things like that. So we want to do the things that we need to do in order to improve your sleep so that you can be healthy and energetic. Right? I tell you, most of the guys that I talk to who suffer with energy levels are deficient in sleep. And it doesn't even necessarily mean like they don't get 8 hours. It might be that they're sleeping or they're in bed for 8 hours, but they're waking up 4 or 5 times a night. So there's other things to look at in there. So sleeping like a baby, super, super important. We need to really make sure that that's dialed in. Then recover from training. If you want to be the healthiest version of yourself, you need to be able to perform well, right? So you need to be practicing some sort of fitness. And when you're practicing some sort of fitness, the goal is to create a stimulus in your body that's above and beyond what you're normally used to. We need to stress the system, but we need to make sure that we're not overstressing the system, because if we overstress the system, you blow up, right? And it becomes a bad stress instead of a good stress. Makes it very hard for your body to adapt and overcome. And instead, we can just sort of crush you, right? We can just beat the crap out of you. It's what a lot of elite athletes tend to do, is they tend to overdo it, right? So we need to create that stress. But when we create the right amount of stress, we still need to be able to recover appropriately, right? So it's taking the right amount of time off. It's taking a day off when you know that you need a day off. If you're brutally sore or you feel awful, it might be a time where you need to recover from training. You need to take a day off, or you may need to change things up a little bit, where instead of doing some strength training, maybe you just go out for a walk. It's understanding those things, and it's framing them in a way that more is not always better, because that's one of the mentalities I think a lot of folks have, especially when they first start off with an exercise program, right? It's like, more is better. I'm just going to crush myself every day. I'll adapt. You can get away with that a little bit more when you're younger, but as you get older, you have to be more careful with this, right? All right. And then lastly, prehab the joints. So prehabbing the joints, I think it's important to, especially if you have some pre-existing conditions. And look, I deal with guys over the age of 40. If you're a guy over the age of 40, look, I can't even think of one example of someone who I came across that was like totally good. Like I've got low back issues that I deal with, but I do things in a way that makes me stay out of the really bad place. I'm doing my prehab. I'm doing the work that I need to do in order to make sure that my joints are in a good place and my back is in a good place, right? And there's certain things that we can do. So for anybody that's got a pre-existing condition or, a worry about something, we still want to improve your fitness, but we want to make sure that you're taking the necessary steps to rest your joints and to sometimes it's an exercise, sometimes it's a stretch, sometimes it's some manual therapy. There's all kinds of different ways we can do this, but we need to make sure that your joints stay healthy. Okay. So that's the other thing. So those are the three things that I would put in that rest category, right? All of them have to do like with rest/recovery. Okay. So let's put some marks in here. And I'll tell you, I'll just give you the, what I normally see with most guys. Sleeping like a baby. That's kind of, I'm going to say, needs work. A lot of guys need work on that. And I think with technology, it's kind of beat us up a little bit, right? We tend to go to bed with the phone. So next thing you know, we're reading or we're watching a video or a movie or whatever. And all of a sudden, all of a sudden it's 1 a.m. and you're like, oh man, I got to be up at 6 a.m, right? And then you only get 5 hours of sleep, and then you're dragging your butt all day, and then you don't want to do any exercise. All you want to do is sit on the couch at night, and your nutrition tends to be a little bit worse. There's some mental components to that whole thing. But anyways, I don't want to get too deep into that. But sleeping tends to be an area where a lot of guys need some work. Okay, recover from training. Depending on whether or not you're doing some training already. But if you are doing some training, it depends on your mentality. Do you have the mentality of more is better? Because if more is better, you're likely not recovering enough, right? So I'm gonna say needs work. I'm gonna put yellow here. I think the majority of guys who are active, they probably need some work in this recovery area. And most guys, when they come into the coaching program, the Athletic After 40 coaching program, they want to do, they're like ready, they're excited, and they're fired up, and they're like, yeah, let's do this. I'm ready for this. And they there's like an adrenaline dump, and they just go all in like the first 5 or 6 days. And one of the things that I have to do is sort of back them off. Like, look, here's the deal. I don't want you to auger yourself into the ground. You need to make sure that you're taking some time off. And, they kind of like, when I say, look, I want you to take tomorrow off, they'll kind of like question that, like, really? Like, are you sure? Because that's not what I've heard before. The coach tells you you're a slacker and that you're not going to make it if you don't work harder. There's this mentality that's out there, and I think it's very damaging. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've worked with elite level athletes. Like, most of my time dealing with highly motivated people is I need to pull them back. That's the problem for the majority of people who I work with. I tend to work with, I attract a more highly motivated person. That just tends to be my experience. And I think it's by design, because that's who gets the best results. It's who's willing to step into the place of uncomfortableness to be able to make some changes in their life. So, one of the things I like I said, I got to do is I got to back people off. Anyways, so I'm getting kind of down a rabbit hole here. So Prehabbing the joints, last one. I think a lot of guys are pretty good with this. Again, it depends on where you're at with your fitness. Like if you're a fit person already, you probably do some of this stuff. Like maybe you're doing some stretching already. Maybe you've got a routine from a physical therapist that you got or a trainer or whatever. You might be doing some things there. There are always other things that we can do or fit in. So I'm going to say even there, I'm going to say most guys are pretty good there. But again, I'm just making some generalizations here. So we'll call that green. So, I mean, there it is, right? So if I'm this person, right? If I'm this person, I know where am I going to focus on? I'm going to focus on building my strength, and I'm going to focus on eating some quality food, right? I'm going to turn those reds into yellows. And once those are yellows, then I may pick one or two yellows to turn into greens, right? And I mean, best case scenario, we want all of these things to become green. And if all of those things become green, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does it mean if all of that becomes green? Boom. Right? I mean, do the math. And then, that it should make a lot of sense, and these are the things that we bring together in the Athletic After 40 program. So if you're wondering what it is that we do, it's fitness, nutrition, and rest, but it's a little bit deeper than that. We have to dig into all of these things, and we have to turn all of these things green. Each and every one of my clients, their circles look a little bit different, but this is what we're working on. And a lot of times we're working on all of this stuff together. It's kind of a comprehensive thing. We're bringing all of these things up together, and the way that I've designed the program and the process of the whole thing is it develops all of these things together. The emphasis is on everything, not just one specific thing, although everybody's a little bit different. So anyways, I hope this finds you well. If you have questions on this, please let me know. If you'd like some help on this, if you'd like to go through this a little bit more, if you need some help, one of the things I have to do before I bring anybody into the coaching program is I have to have a conversation with you. So if it's something that you think you'd be interested in, reach out. I'll tell you exactly how to do that. And, with that being said, I tend to work with, again, highly motivated people who want to make this change. It's the concepts are very, very simple, but it does take some work. So, all right, there you go. If you have any questions, let me know. Post in the comments. Happy to help. And look, I hope you have an amazing day. Now I have to figure out how to turn this off.